Okay, let's jump right into this deep dive. We've got a fascinating set of sources today, primarily. Reflections from a librarian who's witnessed some massive shifts, in how we get information, connect, even think about creativity.
Yeah, these aren't like dry academic papers. They're personal, really insightful blog posts from Valibrarians, someone who's been, well, right on the front lines of technology's impact on knowledge for decades.
Exactly. She takes us all the way from the days of print, then through the rise of the metaverse, and right up to what's happening now with artificial intelligence.
So our mission here is really to pull out the key insights from her journey, her perspective.
We're going to trace this incredible evolution of information formats, understand what the metaverse is really about, like why people are actually drawn there, and then grapple with the big questions AI is forcing on us.
Questions about creativity, what makes us human, even the nature of relationships. It's really about understanding the human side of these huge technological waves, seen through her unique lens.
Okay, so let's start with a look back, almost to the closing of an era, you could say.
Right. Her career, 1990 to 2015, basically spans the end of what scholars call the Gutenberg parenthesis.
The Gutenberg parenthesis.
Yeah, it's that period roughly from the printing press up to the digital age, where print was the dominant kind of fixed way we stored and shared information. Before Gutenberg, information was more fluid, oral stories, manuscripts that changed.
And now after it, it's fluid again. Digital bits that can be, well, altered instantly.
Exactly. And she saw that transition right up close. She mentions this whole media format tree, things that seem, well, almost ancient now, right?
Totally. Newsprint, microfiche, CD DVDs, film strips,
Yeah.
even catalog cards and floppy disks.
Right. Formats where the information was set, you came back to it, it was the same, solid.
But digital content, as she points out, is just inherently fluid. It's constantly changing, updating, getting remixed.
And that constant motion, the sheer volume,
Hmm.
it creates this feeling she describes, like being washed out to sea. That sense of information overload,
Yeah.
the next wave hits before you've even processed the last one.
I really liked her comparison of her work as a librarian to her father's job. He was a mail carrier.
Yeah, both were knowledge couriers in a way,
Yeah.
delivering vital information.
And that analogy really highlights how our expectations have just completely shifted, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Think about waiting days, maybe weeks, for important news through the mail. Now, we expect instant answers, often from AI.
And we don't even think about the source, usually, or the history behind the
We
answer.
just want the information now.
Yeah.
And that speed, well, it comes with costs. As the sources point out, there are real concerns about the fragility of digital information compared to print.
Like the need for archiving. Preserving those older formats before they just become unusable. She mentions the Museum of Obsolete Media.
Exactly. And privacy, too. She notes how opening someone else's physical mail was, a serious crime. But our digital information, that sense of privacy feels like it's on much shakier ground, constantly eroded.
So, okay, we've moved from fixed print and patient waiting to this fluid digital flood. Instant access is the norm.
Mm.
Maybe we're feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Which leads us nicely into a key feature of today's digital landscape, the metaverse.
Moving from that vast sea of information to specific digital places.
Right. And the sources make a really crucial distinction here, drawing on folks like Wagner, James O., and Tom Bolstorff. They define the metaverse not just as an app you go on, like Facebook.
But as a persistent shared place you go in, like you go in Roblox or Second Life.
Exactly. It's about presence, persistence in a simulated 3D space. And it's not actually a brand new idea, is it?
No. The sources trace it back to Neil Stephenson's novel Snow Crash from '92, which coined the term,
Huh.
and then Second Life, which launched way back in 2003.
That's fascinating. Second Life, kind of the original metaverse, has been running for over 20 years, even if it wasn't, the mainstream thing some expected back then.
But those ideas are definitely echoed now in platforms like Roblox, Fortnite, and of course, Meta's big push.
Sure. But the sources, especially citing push back on some common myths about the metaverse.
Like interoperability, the
Yeah.
idea that your avatar and stuff should move seamlessly between worlds.
Right. Suggests the reality is maybe more about communities crossing platforms, using tools like Discord to stay connected, no matter which virtual space they're actually in at that moment.
Interesting. And what about the idea that it's for absolutely everyone?
Well, perspective, noted in the sources, is that maybe only about, say, 1 in 4 people really find that deep, persistent virtual engagement truly appealing.
But even 1 in 4 globally, that's still huge.
Oh, absolutely. Hundreds of millions of active users. It's definitely not just some niche hobby anymore.
So, if it's not just about gaming, why are people really spending time in these spaces? What's the core human draw?
The sources give some great examples. It really seems to be about finding and building communities, expressing yourself creatively through art, music, designing things.
Content creation, yeah.
Exactly. The stories mentioned, like the elderly blues singer finding an audience, the thoughtful artist, the clothing designer, they suggest it's about finding a place for identity, connection, creative outlets that maybe are harder to find,
Mm.
elsewhere.
And education, too. Potential there.
Yeah, significant potential is developing there as well. And importantly, the sources stress you don't need an expensive VR headset to be in the metaverse.
Right, immersion is one thing, but many people, including educators mentioned, prefer what's called desktop VR.
Just experiencing that 3D environment on a standard computer screen, it's the shared persistent space that's key, not necessarily the goggles.
Looking ahead, the sources touch on this kind of dual potential, don't they? The really positive ways it could connect people, build economies, enhance culture, education.
Versus some, well, potentially creepy ideas,
Yeah.
like uploading consciousness or achieving virtual immortality. It makes you think about what kind of digital places we actually want to build.
Okay, so we've traced this shift from fixed print to the fluid digital sea, explored these persistent places of the metaverse, and now we arrive at what the sources call the second contact.
Yeah. If social media was the first contact, that initial kind of disruptive wave of pervasive digital connection,
Then AI is the next one, and perhaps even more profound.
and the sources are really clear. AI isn't some far-off future thing. It's here now. It's actively reshaping how we interact with information, challenging our ideas about human capabilities.
It's rapidly taking over tasks we used to think needed, uniquely human knowledge or creativity.
The sources give very concrete examples of what AI can do right now.
Yeah.
Generating text that sounds human, even trying poetry, like in that ChatGPT experiment.
Creating incredible images with Midjourney or DALL-E, leading to things like that AI-generated pumptography piece winning a photo contest.
And replicating voices, music.
Right.
We've all heard things like that. Unauthorized Drake the Weekend track made by AI.
Which just immediately plunges us into some deep philosophical waters, which the sources really encourage us to wade into.
Like when AI generates text or images, is it truly creative in the human sense? Or is it just incredibly sophisticated pattern matching, basically regurgitating the massive human data set it was trained on?
Is it, as one idea suggests, potentially slaughtering the muse, making creativity somehow effortless, impersonal?
Yeah, and the librarian's own reflection on using AI for poetry, that feeling that it robs the intimate, sometimes difficult human process of creation that really hits home.
And then the fundamental question, can AI ever actually achieve sentience, consciousness, a soul?
The sources bring up Stefan Beck's analysis of Ishiguro's novel Clara and the Sun, arguing that AI can only simulate sentience very convincingly. It can't actually be self-aware. There's a strong belief expressed that AI simply lacks a soul. It can't replicate the human brain's complexity.
Which leads right to this critical challenge. How do we even distinguish human from AI anymore?
Fictional examples like Clara, the artificial friend, really highlight this blurring line. The sources argue the next generation is already facing this, having to sort out multiple realities.
Not just the tangible world, but these symbolic realities, these simulacra convincing copies created by AI.
They need to grasp the difference between authentic human creativity and AI generation, between, physical presence and this pixel flesh and blood of code.
And here's where it gets really urgent, according to the sources. This isn't hypothetical.
Not at all. Teens are already forming emotionally deep parasocial relationships, those one-sided connections with AI chatbots.
This came up in a presentation mentioned, given by the librarian's daughter who works in mental health. She stressed that many adults are still struggling to even grasp that this is happening right now.
And the potential implications are huge.
Yeah.
While AI obviously has helpful uses like, say, troubleshooting code.
Yeah, practical stuff.
Right. But the sources strongly caution against relying on it for initiating original ideas, or especially for nurturing a child's developing imagination.
Okay, so let's try and loop all these different threads back together. Back to learning and back to you, the listener, navigating all this.
Because these shifts in how we get info, the possibilities of the metaverse, the challenges of AI, they all fundamentally impact how we learn, how we evaluate information, and how we express ourselves.
The metaverse, for instance, offers some really intriguing possibilities for education, doesn't it? Stepping inside content, exploring 3D models like that Broadman's brain example, building learning spaces together.
But underlying all of it, as the sources stress, is the crucial importance of digital citizenship. It's something the librarian feels very passionately about.
How do we equip ourselves and the next generation with the skills to navigate this complex, often ambiguous digital world responsibly, critically?
That really is the core challenge, isn't it? Learning how to find and prioritize meaningful information when we're just drowning in data.
And discerning what's authentically human from what's AI generated, making sure we're strengthening our own critical thinking, not just, outsourcing it.
These aren't abstract concepts for some distant future. These are forces shaping how we learn, connect, create, and even understand ourselves right here, right now.
So we've taken this deep dive from the fixed certainty of the print age into this fluid, sometimes overwhelming digital sea. We explored the surprisingly human reasons people inhabit the persistent places of the metaverse.
And confronted the profound, immediate challenges AI presents to our ideas about creativity, humanity, everything.
It's a world where those lines between human and artificial, tangible and simulated, are becoming incredibly blurry, hard to discern sometimes.
Which really leaves us with this final thought for you to consider.
In this rapidly blurring world, where do you draw the line? And what does it truly mean right now to be a discerning, creative, and connected human being?